What's up everyone, I'm Demon Cringe, and ladies and gentlemen, today we got something pretty funny, I gotta say. So, it looks like Andrzej Sapkowski, the creator of the Witcher novels, has actually been interviewed, and his pessimism, despite winning a huge boatload of cash, is honestly pretty both hilarious and sad at the same time. So this is a bit of a long one, so without further ado, let us get on with it, shall we? This article is of course on Gizmodo.com, which will be linked in the description below, so you can take a look at it yourself. So it says, The Witcher continues its trek across the countryside. The popularity of the Henry Cavill-led show led to a spin-off anime called The Nightmare of the Wolf, which in all honesty is just an animated movie, not an anime. A movie soundtrack featuring Jaskier's tunes, and even a 500,000 book reprint of the original series. We reached out to Andrzej Sapkowski, the creator of the Witcher series, to get his thoughts on the series and the fan resurgence it's inspired, and his answers were surprising. Oh boy. And this is also something that I wanted to comment on before we get into it further. So basically the resurgence of the Witcher has made the books have a half a million copy reprint. So yeah, this guy is getting even more money, and yet he still continues to basically be an old grump. In this industry, you end up interviewing a lot of people. Most of the time it feels like a complicated dance, with the interviewer and the subject weaving through questions in an effort to either get to the truth or avoid revealing too much of it. But every once in a while you have a chance to talk to someone who chooses not to hide behind layers of avoidance, over politeness, or dishonesty. Sapkowski talked about his reservations on having a TV show adaptation of The Witcher, what surprised him the most about the production process, why he doesn't play video games, and why of course getting 500,000 reprints of his book series made him happy. So the first question asked by Gizmodo is, when were you first approached about doing a show adaptation of The Witcher, and how do you feel about it? Do you have any reservations? Sapkowski replied with, I must confess, I was reluctant at first. I've been approached before by many people, mostly far from being serious, so I practically lost hope and was difficult to persuade when suddenly another offer appeared, but this specific offer was businesslike and the people behind it sympathetic. I had every reason to react positively. Gizmodo says, how involved were you in the production process? Sapkowski replies, not very much in my own request. I do not like working too hard or too long. By the way, I do not like working at all. Quote, let he who is without sin cast the first stone at me, John 8:7. It's pretty hilarious that he actually quoted a Bible verse for something like this. I mean, he basically just admits that not only does he not like working too hard or too long, he doesn't like working at all, which is probably why he honestly hasn't made anything good since The Witcher, to be totally honest. Gizmodo then says, was there anything you insisted to be included or fought for? Sapkowski replied, for the record, I strongly believe in the freedom of an artist and his artistic expression. I do not interfere and do not impose my views on other artists. I do not insist on anything, and do not fight for anything. I advise when necessary and ask for. That's actually pretty good answer right there. I do like the fact that he did not try to meddle in the production of the show, although I do think that the show might have been a little bit better, in terms of like the terms of the flow of storytelling and all that. Because let's face it, even though the guy is a cynical asshole, he did write the Witcher books, and of course the books are really awesome, have great flow of storytelling and all that. It would have benefited the show if he had a hand in it. The next question is, were there any creative changes to the show that you agreed with or even changed the views in your work? Sapkowski replies, it was inevitable. The process of transforming words into pictures cannot be done without some losses, but I'd rather keep the details to myself. Well, yeah, I do actually agree with him on that point, because yeah, when you turn like a written media into a show or a movie and all that, there's bound to be some some inconsistencies here and there to cut down on the budget and all that. And if you want a good example of that, take a look at The Walking Dead. Like in The Walking Dead comic book, Rick loses his arm, but of course they couldn't do that in the show because then they would have to like CGI it all the time and all that. Gizmodo then says, what surprised you the most about the production process? And Sapkowski replies with, a lot of things, even though I'm not easily surprised, believe it or not. When I write, I don't see any pictures. It's not a visual process with me. I see letters and I only work with letters, so when I see some visualization of my work, be it comics, games, or movies, sometimes I'm really surprised, most pleasantly. That's also pretty nice and pretty interesting, I gotta say. The next one is pretty hilarious. Gizmodo asks, what do you think translated best to screen in the show adaptation? And Sapkowski of course replies, my name appears in the credits. I cannot praise the show, it wouldn't be decent. Gizmodo then says, what do you feel didn't successfully translate to a screen in the show adaptation? Sapkowski replies, I would have to be an idiot to say, and my name appears in the credits. Gizmodo then says, how would you compare the Witcher show to the video games? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each medium? And this answer is actually pretty stupid, I gotta say. So he replies with, I cannot compare anything to video games because I never played any. Since I was a kid, I haven't played any games, with a possible exception of bridge or poker. Video games are simply not for me. I prefer books for entertainment. Anyway, in my opinion, TV series and video games, any of them cannot be compared. They are too different in approach, making an objective. You cannot compare spaghetti carbonara with a bicycle, even though both have advantages and disadvantages. Now, first off, the whole spaghetti and bicycle analogy is pretty dumb. Although I do have to kinda sorta agree when he says like, oh, he can't compare anything to video games because he hasn't played any. I mean, I can get where he's coming from with that, but he can't compare them in terms of storytelling, to be totally honest. Gizmodo then says, what was your reaction to learning your books were getting 500,000 reprints after the release of the Netflix show? Sapkowski then replies with, how do you expect I answered this question? That I despaired, shed tears, considered suicide? No sir, my feelings were rather obvious and not excessively complex. Now, this is a pretty reasonable answer. Obviously, if you were like, if you made a book and it got 500,000 reprints, yeah, you'd be super excited and all that, but yeah, I do think that his answer was a little bit overdramatic. I mean, come on. Gizmodo then says the Witcher's popularity has seen a resurgence since the show, both with the books and video games, so why do you feel that is? Sapkowski replied with, I was tempted to say that all this happened because of the author's exceptional talent, but I won't do that, I am too modest. He says that after he gave two answers where, you know, he only praises his name being in the credits. I'll answer your question with the Latin proverb, habent sua fata libellula. Books have their own destinies. Yes, I know I butchered that, but hey, you know, Latin's pretty much pointless in today's world. Gizmodo then says, for fans of the show who haven't read your book series before, what are you hoping that they got out of reading it for the first time? Sapkowski says, let them convince themselves, so wait no longer, guys and gals, read the books. I can actually stand behind that 100% because the Witcher books are really, really good and I highly recommend you check them out and all that. Gizmodo then says, what are you most looking forward to with the future of the Witcher show, which has already been renewed for season 2, and Sapkowski, of course, gives a very, very cynical response, saying, allow me to quote Joe Abercrombie, the author whose books are very much to my liking, life is basically fucking shit, keep your expectations low, maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised. Wow, that is definitely a huge downer, I gotta say. He really isn't expecting anything from the show or like anything, you know, Witcher related, you know, besides the books. And of course, Gizmodo's final question is, any additional comments? To which Sapkowski says, none whatsoever, thank you. So that's pretty much the review itself, and like I said, this guy is really, really cynical. Holy crap. The fact that he gave two answers where he says, oh, my name is in the credits and all that, Jesus Christ, and then later he replies with, oh, I'm too modest. Oh, yeah, totally modest, totally. Like, I honestly don't even know what the hell's going on through this guy's brain. He basically just won a huge boatload of money from CD Projekt Red for no reason whatsoever besides him being stupid and, you know, going for a single lump sum payment for the Witcher license instead of royalties and all that. But in addition to that huge amount of money he just got, he is also getting even more money from the resurging popularity of the Witcher books. Plus, I am definitely sure that he learned his lesson, and, you know, when the Netflix people got to him and asked if they could use his license and all that, if they could use The Witcher, he did the smart thing and actually asked for royalties. The bullshit lawsuit that he won, the resurgence of the books, and of course, most likely the, you know, the royalties from The Witcher show. So he got money from 3 different things, and he's still not happy. I don't even know what the hell's going on with him. So yeah, despite all of these good things happening to him, even though one of those things is complete horseshit, he is still very, very pessimistic, like always. So yeah, he must be really fun at parties, I gotta say. Anyway, everyone, that's pretty much been the whole thing. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, press the bell icon, and if you wish to support me, everyone, page link is in the description below. And as always, I'm Demon Cringe, and I'll be seeing you guys again else in the next video.
ここには少しさえもない表は素朴コール